Hey, it's another edition of the DLF Dynasty podcast. I'm Dan Myler. With me, Ryan McDowell and Matt Price. Fellas, we are inching our way towards training camp. It's kind of the doldrums of the fantasy football season, except we all got to play in Scott Fishbowl this week. So we had a lot of fun with that. I guess I can say for myself, I had a lot of fun. Hopefully I built the team that'll take all those other teams down, and I can call myself a champion. Man, it'd be a lot of fun to be a champ in that thing, Matt.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We're not quite finished yet here on Monday, but it's been a pretty good pace. We've had no timeouts, so I feel like we've been one of the more lucky divisions, and it seems like it's been a fun league chat of everyone posting Parks and Rec gifts because I'm in the Mouse Rat division. So it's been a fun time.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun in mine as well. We actually wrapped ours up on Sunday afternoon. So we got every pick, every round done inside of a week, which is a record for any league that I've been in. I'm in the Green Day division. So those guys, they've been a lot of fun in the chat as well. Ryan, how about you? How's your draft coming along?
Mine is going well. Still plenty of rounds left. I've got five or six picks, but that's okay. I don't want to end the fun too quickly. I did ask this on Twitter. I want to see what you guys think. The way I posed the question was, this year, if you could only win one, you could win your home league, your big money league, or you could win the Scott Fishbowl. Which one would you choose? Oh. I stumped you already?
No, not me. I would pick SFB, absolutely. 100%.
I think I'd pick SFB too. That's just a title you can hang on to. As we've seen from a few that have won, they mention it every chance they get. And not that that's the wrong thing to do. If you win something like that, you should hang on to it for sure.
Well, you only get one of those a year. You have however many 15 opportunities for me to win another one, whether it's big money or home league or whatever. So I'll take the 1900 team victory.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I haven't looked at the final poll results, but it was pretty well even between the three. But SFB was not the overwhelming favorite. I thought it would be.
I think it depends on how big money you're talking. Like if you're a really like baller and you're in like $1,000 entry league, maybe you want the cash, But I'm not in any of those leagues, so
no, me either.
Yeah, me neither. I do have a lot of fun in my home league, and Scott Fishbowl is a dream, of course. Big money league to me is like my home league because we get like $100 entry, and that's about as big as I play. I'd rather play in a handful of those, and that's what I do. So that's a good question, and I'm really surprised, Ryan, that there weren't more that right away just crashed in there. Like, of course, SFB, you can. That's a title you can hang over everybody's head, not just your 11 buddies in town, right?
Yeah, man. It's bragging rights over your buddies, right? Or it's bragging rights over basically the entire fantasy industry. Yeah. Right. So, I don't know. It seems like
so we're all dreaming, of course.
Which presumably your friends in your home league are probably, at least kind of a part of anyway, so they're included in that.
Yeah, for sure.
You get it all.
All right, so we've kind of jumped around in what we've covered over the last month or so. We got out of the rookie talk, and we've tried to hit on as many players as we can, talking about this coming season specifically. But we thought we'd jump in the time machine this week. Let's jump a year into the future, guys, and do a startup from 2022. We thought we'd do a Superflex. Threw a little tight end premium in there, try to get through a couple rounds, maybe get through three. The three of us just picking. So no team construction. We're going best player available throughout. Mostly just trying to get a gauge on where we think these players are going to be a year from now, Matt. This was a fun exercise. I put a little bit of time into it, trying to figure out where everybody should go. Tell me about your thoughts on this coming in. You're trying to think of things 12 months from now. How difficult was it for you, Matt?
It was extremely difficult once you get outside of, I would say, for me, it's the quarterback position. I don't think that's too much of a a spoiler here, but we're doing a super flex format, so the first round is probably going to be dominated by quarterbacks. So those worked out pretty well for me, I think. But once you get in trying to incorporate the other positions with those quarterbacks, that's when it becomes a real like exercise in, mental gymnastics and calculating age and are they going to be free agents or not, and how team is the team in general going to be next year. It becomes a real kind of thinking exercise. So it's a lot of fun. I'm excited to see how these guys get meshed together.
I did this all by hand, and there's a lot of scribbles, and I rewrote the name below, and then ended up having to start over again. Ryan, how about you? How'd the exercise go for you when you were putting together some kind of cheat sheet?
It's a real challenge, and I think one of you said it was an eye-opener. It certainly is, because we like to think that we play this dynasty game with a 3-year window or maybe even a 5-year window, and ultimately that's just not the reality of it, because every year, the results of every single year change dynasty rankings and dynasty ADP so much. And even the ADP that we're looking at here today, currently, is basically a result of what we saw last season. The players that obviously gained value, players that struggled, lost a ton of value. And we kind of throw that long-term window out the window, honestly. And so when you're fast forwarding a year, you're basically projecting what's going to happen in the 2021 season and how will those dynasty values respond as a result.
It really made me think that I need to rethink how I see some players right now on the trade market and even in any kind of startup. I have another one coming up here pretty soon. I need to re-gauge where I see these players, because there's too many that when I did it, I first looked at current ADP and thought and looked at players' ages and then moved players up based on how much I like them now and how much I feel like they're going to explode in value. And why am I not valuing those players at that level right now, making those kind of moves for my dynasty rosters? So Just in that amount of time, and I think this is a fun exercise for anybody at home. If you're listening and you're looking for something to do one of these evenings, start looking at current ADP and who you think is going to go up and down, put a plus or a minus next to their names. And that is a very, very quick way to make a list of players you're supposed to go out there and try to add to your rosters. That's essentially what we're doing right here. Ryan, you drew the number one pick in this 2022 startup draft, a Superflex draft, a tight end premium draft. I'm guessing you're going right to Kyle Pitts, because that's what everybody says it has to happen, right? The everything's just exploding when it comes to Kyle Pitts. Is he going to be the number one overall pick 12 months from now?
I don't think so. Not in this format, at least. Matt said we were doing that Superflex format. We've seen it happen really over the past year, the past 18 months, according to DLF ADP, that the quarterback position has really just taken over. And we've talked about it on here. It's because of these so many young, talented quarterbacks coming into the league. So I would expect that to continue going into next year with more young quarterbacks coming in. I'll stick with Patrick Mahomes here as the 101, still just 26 years old. We know he signed that huge contract a year ago, locking him in for, I think it was 10 years or 12 years. So I don't think anything will change, or at least not that much will change in the next year. I still think Mahomes is the 101.
Yeah, I think he should have been the 101 in this exercise. I would have taken him 101 for sure as well. Going to be 26 years old, as you mentioned, and that's a baby for quarterbacks right now when we see guys into their 40s and performing at MVP levels. So Mahomes, I believe, was the easy pick. Matt, what are your thoughts on the number one pick, and then who we going with at number two?
It just feels like, I cannot imagine a world right now. It's going to happen, but right now you just can't imagine a world where Patrick Mahomes is not going to be the top quarterback, and B, if the quarterback trend continues for Superflex leagues, be the number one pick in Superflex leagues. So 25 years old, if he plays till 35, we have 10, maybe not 10 years, but we got 5 more years of number one overall. That's the way it feels to me. But the second option is also pretty clear to me, and I think that this player is, high in all of the three of our hearts, but in terms of like general dynasty ADP, I think he's down a little bit from here. But that's Lamar Jackson for me, because I don't think he's necessarily going to have the same kind of season as he did in 2019, but I think it'll be better than what he did in 2020. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, those seasons where the passing numbers match up with his rushing numbers, which I think are going to be there pretty much every season. Once those two match up, like he's going to be the number one quarterback in fantasy that particular season. So to get that kind of upside, maybe it doesn't happen every year. Maybe we have off years, quote unquote off years like we had in 2020. But he's still going to provide that floor for you. So that kind of safety plus that kind of upside makes him a pretty clear number 2 for me.
Yeah, I would have taken Lamar number 2 as well. I think he's going to have a big season in 2021, and that'll vault him back into that conversation as more of a 1-1A type situation like we talked about maybe a year ago. Lamar with that huge floor that he presents every single week and really every season. Plus, over the last couple of years, it's been Mahomes that's been banged up, and Lamar. Everybody, when you have those conversations about Lamar Jackson, we all tend to think, "Oh, he's a running quarterback. Just wait, he's going to get hurt." Well, he hasn't. He's played the 16 or at least 15. I think he sat out a game at the end of one of those seasons because they had things wrapped up. But he's on the field every single week, and he's providing that floor along with that killer upside that makes him just an elite pick. I think he's the 102 in Superflex drafts right now, or at least should be, and belongs at the 102 in 2022 as well. I'm going to take the next guy on my list. And guys, right before we started, I did a quick mock draft after I looked at who drew each pick. So far, it's gone to scale. I expected Mahomes, then Jackson. I was going to take Kyler Murray. So I'll take Kyler right here. I think he's the 103 at this point right now. He's still very, very young, 23 years old, an ascending offense, a coach, and an offense that I think most of us believe in, especially if they can fix that offensive line and give him a little bit more protection. He's got the weapons on the outside now. Maybe he needs a little help in that backfield. A pass-catching running back would certainly help out, and maybe we'll see what happens with what they have in Arizona in 2021. But I think that's the next step. There were all the rumors that they were going to try to add another running back to that offense for another weapon for Kyler. He also provides that rushing floor week in and week out. If he can stay healthy, and last year I don't think he was all that healthy late in the season, he was showing that elite type upside, especially early in the year. He belongs in the top 3 to me. Ryan, do you concur?
Yeah, I think Kyler would be my 103 in this exercise as well. Again, fast forwarding a year. But honestly, I think there's just so many good young quarterbacks, mostly young, a couple of guys starting to get up there, but still maintaining value, certainly. And I would expect them to be first rounders. But just the volume of quarterbacks really makes it a great time to be a Superflex Dynasty player. At 104, it's not a slam dunk choice here for me, at least. But I am going to go, I guess with the chalk. I know Matt's not going to take him, so I'll make it easy. I'll go with Josh Allen here. Will just be 26 years old this time next year. Of course, coming off of basically an MVP level season. And, we saw Lamar Jackson do that 2 years ago. And I'm really interested to see if Josh Allen can repeat, or if he has kind of that letdown as we saw from Jackson, and what that does to his value.
That is my first incorrect pick. I had you taking Josh Allen, but I thought he was going to slip to 107, Ryan. You take him a little higher than what I expected, just based on what you've said on podcasts and our conversation. So that was a little bit of a surprise for me. Matt, I know he didn't snipe you on that pick. Who you got at 105?
No, I had him down at quarterback 9, which I know is probably too low, but we got a lot of good quarterbacks coming in this season. So, and I'm actually going to take one of them here. I'm going to take Trey Lance.
You
whatever
dirty
it is.
scoundrel.
Listen, I mean, he's potentially a better passer than Lamar Jackson, and we've seen what he does with his legs. He's a different style of runner, obviously, than Lamar Jackson, but we know what he can do with that, and he provides that same upside, that same floor as Lamar Jackson does, just does it in a little bit different way. So if we don't see him right away, that's fine. Bring him out mid-season whenever it is Kyle Shanahan's ready to bring him out. That's fine with me. And if I'm in the 4 spot at this point, I think I'm taking Trey Lance here in 2022.
All right. I thought Lance would fall a little bit farther than that. I figured you guys would take Trevor Lawrence before Lance. So I had them all. I didn't even use pencil. I used pen. I thought Trey Lance is my guy. Going to get him at 6, even though I have him ranked at 5. I guess that's not to be. I will take Trevor Lawrence, though. Yeah. I think most dynasty managers would say, wait a minute, Lance over Lawrence. But if anybody has been listening for any amount of time, they should know that the 3 of us are relatively high on Lance and see him as an elite type upside player. So it's no surprise that he goes 5 overall. Lawrence fits right in that conversation. I'm, really there's going to be a quarterback that gets pushed down to 7 that really doesn't belong at 7, right? And I assume, Ryan, you'll go with him next. Lawrence, to me, feels like a bargain right here at 6. But when you look at the names, Mahomes, Lamar, Kyler, Josh Allen, Trey Lance, and then Lawrence, really these guys, maybe after Lamar or maybe after Kyler, they could go in any order, Ryan.
Yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, I think that's the case after Mahomes. I think these next 5 guys that we've seen drafted, and I would throw 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 other quarterbacks all in that same tier. That if we do this again next week, the order would probably be different. A little surprised by the Lance pick. I was hoping to be the one to snipe Dan, but not meant to be. That's okay. I did want to ask you guys before I pick here at 107. So far, have you even considered a running back or a wide receiver or tight end?
No,
It's
and really
it's getting close.
Go ahead, Matt.
Let's just say it's getting close. We're getting close.
All right. I think there's really it depends on how a draft is falling. If you look at each pick individually, Ryan, you're on the clock at 107, but technically if you're running a team, you haven't made a pick yet. So you're looking at these 6 guys come off the board and you're thinking to yourself, boy, I better get one of these elite quarterbacks because there's no way that they get back to me in the middle of the 2nd round, right?
Well, yeah, and we see that happen a lot. I mean, we talked about that last week, I think it was, with that running back tier, right? The low end RB2s, and that's why guys like Chris Carson and Trey Sermon and David Montgomery are maybe getting pushed up higher than we would like to see them. It's just because of that scarcity, I guess. So we're definitely going to see that with every position, but in this case, I don't think it's happening yet. I think all of these guys are worthy of being first-round startup picks.
We just have so many good young quarterbacks. It's not like it was a few years ago when all the elite guys were in their late 20s, early 30s. It's just a different time. We have so many of these young ones, and we know how long these guys play. So it just makes it, to me, it just makes sense.
Well, and that was part of what really helped boost the popularity of the late round quarterback strategy. That's what really made it work. Is nobody wanted to take Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Peyton Manning in the 1st or 2nd round, right? They were between 35 and 40 years old, even older than that now in Brady's case and Brees last year. But now we're seeing that turnover, and now all these guys are between 23 and 27, and the value is going to go up. You're going to have to take them earlier, even in those 1 quarterback leagues.
And doesn't it feel, guys, we're already talking about Lance and Lawrence being top half of the 1st round startup picks a year from now. They're, really they haven't played it down in the NFL yet. Even a year from now, they will have only played a season worth of football. And we've all seen players play well in spurts or have big seasons and then fall off because of the trajectory of these young quarterbacks, and Kyler and Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, and even Josh Allen, who had his big breakout, because they have gone up in value so quickly on the dynasty landscape. You have to react that way. We're all forced to react that way. And even so, the Trey Lance will open the Trey Lance pick by Matt will open some eyes, and they'll say, "Whoa, are you kidding me? Are we really doing that?" And I think it's just really telling a story about all these guys in the past, the guys I mentioned there, going up so quickly that everybody feels the pressure that they have to get out ahead of the next big thing.
Yeah, and that's always the case as well, regardless of the position. But I've said it on here. I think Dan, you would agree, and Matt, you probably as well. I think Trey Lance is already a first-round Superflex startup pick.
He should be.
It's fringe. I would say fringe, but I definitely don't have a problem with it.
So we're sitting 6 picks in. So far, it's gone Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Trey Lance, and Trevor Lawrence in the 2022 Dynasty Startup Superflex Tight End Premium. Ryan, you got to kick off the second half of the first round. Who you got here?
I'm sticking with quarterback. Certainly, I'm taking Justin Herbert. We saw him have one of the best rookie seasons for a quarterback ever, and I think that only gets better. Honestly, Austin Eckler was in and out of that lineup last year, so with a new offense, at least potentially a new offensive coordinator there, I think it's. I think this is just the beginning of a big career for Herbert. I do not expect a fall off for him at all.
I like that pick. I think after the Josh Allen pick, it went Lance, Lawrence, and Herbert. And again, those 3 could go in any order. You could have thrown Allen in there, maybe even Murray before that, and Jackson before that. I think the list even goes on beyond here, Matt. Is this the point where you start really thinking about running back? Or if you're on the clock at 108 and the 7 youthful elite quarterbacks have gone off the board, are you sticking to that strategy and getting your guy here?
I've got a couple of more before I'm willing to take another position. So I heard so far the ones that have gone off the board, the 7 that have gone off would have been my order. I could see pushing Dak Prescott, who I'm taking here, into that range as well. Like Ryan said, I think you can just throw all of these guys after Mahomes into kind of a bucket and pick your favorite one. If you want to take Dak Prescott number 2, I've seen that happen, and I it's hard to argue against it with the offense that he has around him, right? So to get him here at 8, it feels fine. I don't feel like if I don't have Mahomes, then I'm comparing him to the rest of the guys that went above him, and I don't feel that bad compared to them. So why wouldn't I go ahead and grab that guy here before that tier runs out?
Right, and Dak is coming off the big injury, which happened early in the 2020 season, but should be at full health in 2021 in an offense that looks to pick up right where they left off when he got hurt early last season, when they were just dominating. Frankly, they were putting up massive offensive numbers. They were in shootouts every week. I don't think anybody that watches a lot of football expects that defense to be all that much better. So we expect the shootout. We expect Dak to have to push the ball down the field to those elite weapons that he has. I like that pick. He certainly fits there at 108. That puts me on the clock at 109, and I'm going to continue on with the quarterback run. I'll take Joe Burrow coming off of his injury as well. Going to go into this second season, Burrow I'm talking about here, with the Cincinnati Bengals, but just 24 years old right now. We expect him to be back to full health. They've upgraded the weapons once again in Cincinnati, adding Jamar Chase. They have the running game. The offensive line has been kind of band-aided together once again. They continue to sign these veteran players to kind of fill in as they try to protect their franchise quarterback. I'm not sure that I love that, but I love Jamar Chase there catching footballs from Joe Burrow. I think if there's anybody so far that's been selected that could make a big jump up the list, it's probably Burrow. Of course, depends on the health of that knee, Ryan, and how quickly Jamar Chase takes hold and becomes that playmaker in that offense. But if there's anybody so far that's been selected that could make a huge jump into the top 4 or 5, it's probably Burrow, considering his rookie season, which was cut short, and now the elite downfield playmaker that they added to that offense.
Yeah, I think that's correct. We basically already seen the potential for a big value for Joe Burrow, and I think he's kind of getting overlooked in these leagues right now because partially because of the injury, and also just the play of Justin Herbert basically outshining him last year as rookies. But you're totally right. I mean, if he comes back fully healthy and he's clicking with Jamar Chase and the rest of this offense, we could easily see him being in that mix as the top 4 or 5 pick. And again, we've already said right now, at least, there's little separation between 2 and 9 or 10. I'm going to say 10 because I think this guy I'm going to take is in that same mix. And honestly, by my rankings, he's the last one. So this becomes a pretty easy pick for me. If Dan, like you said, if I'm on the clock here at 10, this is my first pick. I'm running to the podium to take Justin Fields. I think he's the last quarterback in this range.
Yeah, he's the last quarterback in this range for me. I thought he would be a first-round pick in this exercise. I was wondering if he'd be the guy that gets selected right after a quick run on a wide receiver or running back. Matt, where did you have Fields? Did he slide in there at number 10 for you, or would you have taken another position?
Yeah, he was right there. I agree. He's the last player in that area, and I was kind of conflicted of whether to keep him before the first non-quarterback gets drafted. So I could go either way there, and I'm glad that Ryan had to make that choice and not me, because it makes my choice real easy. It's Kyle Pitts, you guys. He's going to be a first-round pick next year.
Whoa.
He's the first non-quarterback off the board.
Yeah, I can't say I hate it. You know,
you can say you hate it. It's fine.
No, I'm not gonna, because we've all gushed about Pitts and his upside and all those fun things. But at the same time, we all should remember that he is a tight end, and you know, typically tight ends do take a minute to get acclimated. Although this tight end will likely play as many or more wide receiver snaps as he does in line at tight end. So. I was wondering where he'd go. I didn't want to be the one to take him, honestly, fellas, because I wanted to see what you two guys, who, you know, honestly, I value you guys' opinions and stuff. I want to know what the Dynasty public really thinks. Where could Pitts go? To see him come in at 11, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't guess I'm surprised that he would be the first non-quarterback off the board. And we did say that this is tight end premium. We didn't clarify what that premium is, and I do think it matters if it's just that 1.5 PPR compared to 1 for the other positions. Honestly, that in my leagues in general, and with Pitt specifically, that doesn't change much in the way I value him. But if we're talking about a start 2 tight end or 2 PPR, then that's a different story, and I certainly would include Pitts this high.
I wouldn't have gone Pitts. I would have gone with a different pass catcher. And you guys might be even more surprised at who I'm going to take at 12. I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 going into next season. I know Amari's there, but as I said with Dak Prescott, I think that offense is going to have to be on the field and be guns a-blazing every single down, every single game. And CeeDee Lamb's going to be a big part of what they have to do, both down the field and in the short to intermediate area. And, you know, so many of us in the Dynasty space and really fantasy managers in general get maybe worried about Dallas because there are so many weapons and they do have to feed all those guys, but somebody's going to take that step forward. And man, if you spent any time watching CeeDee Lamb last year, you had to come away impressed and thinking that he is the number 1 option, number 1 playmaker in that offense sooner rather than later. And I think it's going to start early in 2022 and carry on throughout the season. He might be the best value in Dynasty right now, considering he falls all the way into the 3rd round in most Dynasty startups right now. He's at 34 right now in our most recent DLF ADP.
Yeah, I think that's a bold call, but I think it's bold not because of Lamb, but only because of the depth of the receiver position in general. I totally agree with you on Lamb specifically. I could also see him being the Dynasty wide receiver 1 this time next year. That would not surprise me at all. It seems like a foregone conclusion that at least one of those other wide receivers will be gone. I believe Michael Gallup's a free agent, and there's been a lot of talk about Amari Cooper's contract and the potential of Dallas getting out of that. So I think it's safe to say at least one of that trio will be gone. And of course, that just paves the way for more work for CeeDee Lamb.
So the first round is in the books, guys. Ryan started things off with Patrick Mahomes, the first of 10 quarterbacks to go. After that, it was Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, and Justin Fields at number 10. Then a couple pass catchers. Rookie Kyle Pitts goes 11 to Matt. And then I wrapped up round 1 at 12 with wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. So typically, guys, whoever picks at 12 will kick it back off in the second round. We like to separate our picks a little bit. So this one, we're going to head right back to Ryan for the 201. How do you think you weigh the options here? We haven't seen a running back go. And Matt, I want to bring you in on this as well, because you've been talking recently a lot about how maybe there's a return to where we were in ADP in the past. We haven't seen a running back just yet. They seem to be used up. They're no longer valuable in 2, 3, at least 4 seasons. So when is the right time to take a running back, Matt? We haven't seen one just yet.
I mean, I think this is about the right time. I certainly don't hate the Lamb pick, and actually I was hoping to get him at 202 in a couple of picks. But if you see this long list of quarterbacks and Kyle Pitts go off the board, and you can start your draft with the top two running backs, whichever 2 you want, then I think that is certainly a good option at the end of the turn here. And I think it will be a great option next season. Once we've seen, a second season out of a couple of these running backs. I won't spoil the names right now. And perhaps some of the rookies as well. Right. So I think right now is when they should come into consideration. If you're not taking a quarterback or a top receiver, top young receiver like Lamb, then I think 2 young stud running backs is there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. But honestly, Matt, I'm a little bit scared. It's hard to stick your neck out there for a running back, because these guys get hurt, they get banged up, they have bad seasons, and then we push them all the way down the ADP. So do you want to stick your neck out for a running back when that's the position that seems to be so up and down from year to year, especially?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I just think there's an opportunity to, get a huge leg up for year one. Like, and if you're handed, not necessarily handed year one, but if you draft well the rest of the way, based on what you did with 2 running backs right off the top at the end of the first and the early first pick of the second, then you might as well take the 1 down if you have that big advantage, if everything were to work out. But no, certainly if one or both of those running backs, like last year when we had both Barkley and CMC get hurt, like that is a killer, and it instantly, drops you well down the leaderboard in terms of roster value and competitiveness, right? So it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, something to think about indeed, Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's also just a kind of a product of the strong top tier of quarterbacks, or maybe top 2 tiers that we've already seen drafted. We had 10 in the first round, as you mentioned, Dan. Looking at our current ADP at DLF, we have the top 9 quarterbacks are going within the top 13 overall. But after that, there's only 4 other quarterbacks in the top 36. We're doing 3 rounds here today. So if you look at the same 3 rounds on DLF, there's only 4 others even being drafted in those 3 rounds, and 2 of those, Fields and Lance, have already been drafted here by us today. So we've had so many quarterbacks. That's been the theme of the show so far, but we honestly might not have that many more throughout these next 2 rounds.
Yeah, and this is where those of you that are listening out there and thinking, man, I don't play in Superflex, I'm a 1 quarterback guy. This is the first round now, right? Because we're not going to see a lot more quarterbacks go off. There's something for everybody here on the podcast. If we're going to get through a couple rounds, though, we need to get going in round 2. So Ryan, who we got at the 201?
I'm going to take a running back. I was kind of surprised to not see this player drafted. I do think he has a great chance to be the Dynasty RB1 this time next year. I'll take Jonathan Taylor.
I figured he would probably be the pick. I was going back and forth between CeeDee Lamb and Jonathan Taylor, and it's really what I said. With Taylor, he's an injury away. He's a timeshare with a coaching staff that we're really unsure of. We're not sure exactly how they're going to use that three-headed monster of running backs. If Taylor's the guy, he's probably in those top 12 picks. In fact, he's for sure going to be in those top 12 picks. But there are enough red flags that I probably took the safe way out at 12. I was considering Taylor, but went with CeeDee Lamb. So Jonathan Taylor is the first pick in the second round. Matt, who's the second?
Now, if we were building, pretending like our first round pick and our second round pick were matching up, I would be really upset right now because I could have paired CeeDee Lamb with Prescott, and maybe I have stacking on the brain from SFB, and that's obviously something you want to do in a larger field tournament. And Dynasty, it's a little bit different. But when you can do it, it's kind of fun just to stack guys like that, especially if they're they're two top options on either side of the football, right? So, but since Lamb is gone, then I'll take my current Dynasty wide receiver one, and I project him to be in 2022 as well, and that's DK Metcalf. So the running backs are tempting here, but after Taylor, we just don't necessarily know, and it's so hard to predict how the seasons are going to go for these second year backs, especially who could jump up here. You have to think guys like the older running backs, which I'm sure will be drafted soon, will fall a little bit off again just because they're another year older. They're all going to be 26 years or 27 years old next season, right? So for that reason, it seems hard to project those guys to be that high either. So I'll stick with the high end wide receiver. That's still going to be in this range, I would say, for the next 2 to 3 seasons.
I like that pick. DK would have been a top 3 wide receiver for me. Certainly would have been somebody worth considering at this spot. I'm going to go. Man, it's kind of tough. I want to go back to running back, and this might be a little higher than where you guys had him. I'm going to take Cam Akers. I think he's very likely to take the next step forward and make the big jump. And those are maybe I did a little bit too much of that, and we can talk about that at the end of the exercise. But I was thinking the most about who can make the big splash. And Akers ended so strongly last season, and he was the guy. And there's just really nothing else there. I don't think any of us think Darrell Henderson's going to have a regular role. He seems more of a fill-in. When Akers needs a breather, Akers should be on the field for 3 downs, and that's an offense that I want pieces of, especially considering the Stafford addition. I think they're going to be leading in games. I expect them to win double-digit, maybe even 12 football games. They'll be leading late and relying on Akers to put games away. He should be the goal line back. He should be catching passes on second and third down, and should be a big red zone weapon. So it feels to me like Akers is set up for a big jump, and it's a little bit, it's really difficult to handicap where we expect him to be a year from now, because I don't think I'm alone thinking he's going to take that big step forward, Ryan.
No, he was the next running back on my list as well. I don't think I was going running back with this pick, just because there are quite a few that I like still, and I would say the same at wide receiver. Because of that, I'm going to go back to that quarterback position where I do think it's getting a little thin. I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa here.
Yep.
I do. We talked about him last week. I believe that was last week's show, that I do expect him to make a jump. The Dolphins have added some weapons for him. Obviously expect him and assume at this point he's fully over that injury that he suffered his final college season. So he's a player that I think could make a big jump. And if he does, honestly, he's probably more of a first rounder even than an early second.
Yeah, he was I went back and forth, Akers or Tua, and I thought maybe he'd last 3 more picks. I guess I was way wrong. Certainly fits in right about here. I did rankings, and I mentioned before we started that I did a lot of scribbling and moving. I moved those 2 or 3 players back and forth a few times and finally settled on Akers over Tua. I'm already regretting it just a little bit. That was a nice pick at the 204. So if you look at the player that went mid to late part of the first round, that was like the Herbert, Prescott, Burrow, Fields area. If Tua has a nice season and falls to this range, the early to mid part of the second round, pairing a Prescott or a Burrow or a Fields with Tua, both coming off solid seasons, that feels like a really good start in a Superflex league. I agree with you. It feels like Tua is closer to a first round than a second round pick. That was nice value there at the 204, Matt.
Yeah, that was the pick for me as well. Perfect slotting in there. The quarterback who could make a giant jump, like you guys said, but obviously there's a little bit of question marks and a little bit of uneasiness with how I think the community feels about him at this particular moment. But I'm with you guys. I think he's going to take a big step forward. I'm going to go back to wide receiver because I can't not have Justin Jefferson if those other two receivers are gone. So I mean, he's most people's and maybe even the consensus wide receiver one in Dynasty right now, with another similar season, or even if he has only 1,400 yards, he's probably still going to maintain that title, right? So it feels pretty good to get him here in the middle of the second.
So I like that pick, Matt. I would have taken Justin Jefferson next if he made it to me. Since he didn't, I have to pivot. I'm going to stick to the wide receiver position, and I'll take the plunge with Ja'Marr Chase. I think he belongs in this area. There are a couple other wide receivers probably that you could have a conversation about, guys that are maybe a little bit more proven. I talked about it when we were talking about Joe Burrow. I believe in the offense. I think they're moving in the right direction. It's hard to say when you're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals guys, but it feels like he fits nicely with Burrow. And I think that's going to be a big connection for years to come. It should show up as quickly as early this year. And if it does, it seems like these types of players, and I mentioned CeeDee Lamb, feels to me like he should be a second-round pick right now. I think Ja'Marr Chase will be a second-round pick a year from now.
I like that one. He was the next wide receiver on my board, so I agree with you there. I think I am going to go with a running back. We've had Jonathan Taylor and Cam Akers selected there so far. I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson. He'll be 24 years old this time next year. Like a lot of these other players, especially in the second round, he's one that I see taking that next step. I think Washington is honestly doing great things to build around him. And I'm really excited to see what he looks like with Ryan Fitzpatrick versus the quarterbacks that entire team was dealing with last year. So Antonio Gibson here at 207.
Matt, that puts you on the clock with the 8th pick in the second round. What are your thoughts on Gibson, and who do you have here?
I like 8. We're betting on pure upside. Obviously, if Gibson takes the next step as a receiver, we're looking at a player in this range, if not earlier. But for me, I still want to ride one more season of Saquon Barkley here. I would take him one spot above, I think, Gibson. We see a 25-year-old running back as the 101 right now in one quarterback leagues and the running back one in Superflex leagues right now, and that's Christian McCaffrey, who will be 26 next year, but Barkley will only be 25 next year. So if he comes out, and has the kind of season we know Barkley can have, then I see a similar scenario where he could be the running back one overall this time next year, despite being a little bit older than the Cam Akers and the Antonio Gibsons of the world, right? So that's who I would take here, and it feels kind of like a bargain if you still are on board with Barkley as an elite running back talent.
Yeah, the thing I worry about with Barkley, and not to spoil anything, but probably worry about with CMC, is any injury this year, any lost games are going to be very damaging to their dynasty value. It feels like it, or any significant lost games. If they lose 4 or 5 games and it lingers into the 6th and 7th, it feels like that's going to be enough to push them down, as it has so many running backs before them.
The only thing I'll say that is the counterpoint is Christian McCaffrey, who just did that same thing. He had 2, running back 1 week basically, right, and then missed the whole rest of the season, and yet he's still the running back 1 this season. So, not saying that's going to happen with a guy like Barkley, since it would be 2 seasons in a row, for a guy like him. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think they both get clumped in together. Those are the 2 players that I had the hardest time placing in my rankings, because I don't dislike the pick and don't think that it's possible. In fact, it's probably possible that they could be quite a bit higher than where we have them right here. Again, maybe a little bit scared. Don't want to take the plunge with a mid-20s running back that has had a couple of injuries over the last couple of years. And that could certainly ding them if it happens once again. That puts. Go ahead.
Sorry, this entire exercise, I don't know. I don't know if we made this clear. Hopefully it was. This is not a prediction of ADP. This is more of a prediction of how we would each draft. And we've all made it pretty clear that we favor quarterbacks in Superflex leagues. We typically favor wide receivers over running backs in general. And we're staying away from those 26, 27-year-old running backs. But right now you see a guy like Dalvin Cook in the first round. So a year from now, will Barkley and McCaffrey be higher than what they're going here? They probably will, but not on our teams.
When I was on the clock at the 206, I took Jamar Chase, and I was wrestling myself about a running back. Gibson and Barkley both went in between, and those weren't the ones I was thinking about. It was Najee Harris, the rookie from the Steelers. I'm going to take him right here at the 209. It feels like a bargain to me. I had him a few spots higher in my rankings. I think he's in line for all the workload that all fantasy analysts are talking about this year. I think he's going to take advantage of all of that, and it'd be surprising to me if he fell out of the second round next season in Superflex drafts. He feels like a good pick right here. I'll take him at 209.
Yeah, I like Najee Harris there as well. Even though I've said Travis Etienne is my rookie dynasty RB1, it's pretty clear Harris is going to be the guy who gets the work immediately and sees the value boost as a result of that. At 210, I'm going to go back to that quarterback position. Basically, every single year we see rookies being drafted in the second round of dynasty startups. So I'm going to go with a rookie who I think will be the 101 in rookie drafts and the 101 in the NFL draft. I'll take Spencer Rattler here, the Oklahoma quarterback.
Yeah,
that's where I was going. That's exactly
I was
where
taking him at 212. I thought for sure I was getting him at 212. That's a nice pick. I think all your logic certainly checks out. If he indeed has the big season that most of us expect, if he goes 101 in Superflex rookie drafts, he's going to fit in real nicely in the second half of the second round. Spencer Rattler goes 10th in the second round here, which puts Matt on the clock at 11.
That's just crazy. We were all trying to get him at the end of the second. I mean, kind of predictable, I guess, but man.
We've been around each other too much.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Because I was even going to be curious if we were going there. We never really talked about going there. I assumed we were, so I put him on my list. But anyway, I'll go back to wide receiver then. I'll go to A.J. Brown. I think there's a chance that he's going to have a little bit of a down season, quote unquote down. I think he'll still be fine for fantasy in 2021, but now Julio is there. So his value is probably going to dip a little bit. I think some do still have him as the wide receiver one overall, and certainly over guys like DK and some of the older wide receivers that we haven't gotten to yet. But still feels like a very, very extremely safe prospect to me. Somebody you're not going to miss on at this point in your draft.
All right. AJ Brown goes at 11 in the second round. That puts me on the clock at 12. And I don't love the option because I was so married to the idea of getting Spencer Rattler at 212. That really burns me.
I told you there was going to be some McDowell gotcha moments in this.
Yeah, he got me good right there. That's for sure. I guess I'm really sweating it. I will take Travis Etienne here at 212. Maybe a little bit higher than I expected to take him. Like you said, Ryan, I do think he's the rookie running back one, and it's weird that I took Harris over him. I just expect that workload to really add to Harris's value a year from now. So Etienne may have to share the load as a rookie, but he's going to show enough in spurts to be a late second or early third round pick in startups a year from now. Second round is in the books. Ryan started off with Jonathan Taylor, then DK Metcalf, Cam Akers, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Antonio Gibson, Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Spencer Rattler, A.J. Brown, and Travis Etienne. We got a little bit of time, guys, to shoot through the third round. Let's kick it off right away, Ryan. Who do you got?
This is one that could definitely just look silly a year from now, a month from now, who knows? But I'll take Deshaun Watson.
You did it again, McDowell. Son of a.
He is just 25 years old right now. Obviously, we know all the off-field and everything going on. But if he's on the field a year from now, he has at least this much value, if not higher.
Yeah, 100%. That was another good pick. I went back and forth between Etienne and Watson. Should have probably gone Watson. McDowell, man.
Yep, same thing. I was like, he'll slip to the third round. It's fine. Yeah, 301.
Well, he did.
Yeah, and
Matt, we got a 302.
And I mean, you have a huge gap between him and everyone else, I would say, right? Like if he comes back, there's a gigantic, like the gap is just, it's the Grand Canyon. Back on the clock, I will go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, someone whose value has definitely dipped since he was the rookie 101 in one quarterback leagues, but he's still attached to the best quarterback and the best offense in football. And, I'm not afraid of any of the competition that they brought in this year, like Jerick McKinnon, right? So I think he still has that upside that we thought he had as long as he gets the touchdowns this season.
All right, I think this is the right spot to go with the going to be 26-year-old running back next season, and it's Christian McCaffrey. Yep. He falls into the third round. I would have had him right behind Etienne, so Christian McCaffrey goes 303. Ryan, who's next?
I was definitely eyeing it. It felt like McCaffrey had fallen too far. I mean, Alvin Kamara's a first rounder in one quarterback leagues right now, kind of borderline in Superflex. He's 26 right now. So, in reality, we probably took it too far with McCaffrey, but that's okay. It's part of the fun of this type of exercise. I'll go with a running back as well. I'll take a younger guy, DeAndre Swift, at 3.04.
Oh, I almost wrote a different name in there when you said younger running back. I'm sure he's coming off here pretty soon.
Probably right here, J.K. Dobbins. The pass catching, be damned, whatever you want to say about it. With Lamar Jackson as a quarterback, he's a stud.
All right, so I'm back on the clock now at the 306. I guess I'm going to go back to quarterback. I'll take Russell Wilson, and I know he's an older guy, but he's currently in the first round, and to fall all the way into or I guess he falls into the second round, right? Either way, he's at 12 right now this month. To fall into the third, and I know he's 32 now, going to be 33 a year from now. We still expect these quarterbacks to play into their late 30s and maybe even beyond. Russell's put up such great numbers that to get him in the middle of the third round feels just fine.
Yeah, that's a great value as well. Another one we probably went too far with because, a guy like Aaron Rodgers right now is an early third rounder, and he is 37 years old, I believe, and obviously has some different questions maybe than Russ has or will have, and you're talking about a 5-year age gap. So great value on Russ. I'm going to go with a quarterback as well. I'll take Zach Wilson. He's going to be the starter basically the entire season, barring injury. No competition for him there. Another team that is stocked up on weapons. Really, if we see any type of success from him, he's going to have a value gain like this.
You might have got me again, but not for this pick. My next pick, I thought maybe he'd be a great pick at 36. So a little bit ahead of the curve on that one, as you usually are, Ryan. Matt, who do we got at the 308?
Yeah, I'll go with the third quarterback in this class. That's Javonte Williams. He's already a 5th round pick, I believe, to get him at the end of the third after he takes this job from Melvin Gordon. Sounds about right. A two round jump for Javonte feels pretty good.
Yeah, he was coming up pretty close on my rankings as well. I have to jump on the Alvin Kamara Express at this point. I know it's becoming fashionable to overlook him and say he's the one that's overrated in the first round currently in the quarterback position, all those things. Kamara's a special player. So I don't think it's unlikely, I would say, that he falls out of the top 36 a year from now. So I'll take him right here.
This is a tough one. There's so many good options, some players that are first rounders still that have not been chosen. I think this is my last pick. I'm going to go with Zeke. I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott. he will still be 26 years old. This would actually represent a value gain for him. He's 40th overall right now. We don't normally see running backs of that age gain value, but he's a player that I think has fallen too far this offseason, and hanging around here at the end of the third round, I think is a decent value for next year.
Matt, I got to hear what you have to say about Zeke. I had 40 players ranked, and I didn't have Zeke on there. Did you?
I don't have Zeke on there as well, but he could easily be running back one this year and fall in this range. I don't think that's out of the question at all. But no, not on my list. Man, it's so hard. He's right. There's I'm the last pick. Is there one more pick after me, or am I the last pick? You got another pick, Dan?
I got one more.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many players we haven't talked about. I'm just going to throw names out there at this point. Davante Adams, it feels like he should have been off the board by now. If we compare him to what DeAndre Hopkins was, this time last year, where Hopkins was, in this range of this, in the top 3 to 4 coming off the board in terms of wide receivers, and then falling down to 9 this year with him, and then so he feels like another year off from the Julio plummet down to the low 20s. So. I'm going to take Davante Adams here and hope that Rodgers comes back. If he does, then I think you're still going to get, a top 10, top 8 wide receiver from production wise for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I like that. I think maybe Ryan, you made a couple good points where we let Christian McCaffrey slide too far and maybe let Russell Wilson slide too far. That's been my MO here in the third round. I took McCaffrey, I took Wilson, then I took Kamara, who I felt was falling too far. There are a handful of receivers, guys, that really are hard to overlook at this point. I'm not going to be able to. It's just deciding which one to really go with. There's also a pretty glaring missing running back. There's a lot of fans of Dalvin Cook out there right now saying, "Wait a minute, what's going on?"
Wrong podcast.
Really, Dalvin Cook's going to be outside the top 36. He's going to have to be, because I don't think Tyreek can fall out of the top 36. There's no way. I'm taking him at 36 right here. Are there any other big overlooked players, Ryan, that you think should have been in here?
Yeah, there's a huge one. Can I change my Zeke Elliott pick to George Kittle?
That was another one.
In the tight end premium format, we saw Pitts go in the first round and then no other tight ends. I do think a value fall off for Kelsey and Waller is realistic, but I would expect Kittle to be a top 3 round pick. So I would prefer him to Zeke and maybe some of these other guys. You talked about Cook. Nick Chubb was the other player I was considering. Basically chose Zeke over him, but then
and he's another one of those guys that's going to be 26 years old a year from now, and has going to have the big contract and all those things. It's weird to see these players fall this far.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs and Calvin Ridley at the wide receiver position. One that, this guy could make all of us look dumb over the next year is Jalen Hurts. We did not draft him. Obviously, a young quarterback. If he picks up where he left off in week 16 or 17, then he not only will be a top 3 round pick, but he'll have plenty of value. And then a couple of other rookies, Sam Howell, Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, could all be in consideration in this range as well.
Yeah, you took Deshaun Watson, and I almost took Hurts when I came back around, but decided I need to get some of these first-round guys in here that it's just unlikely that they fall out of the top 3. Anybody else for you, Matt, that you considered?
Ryan pretty much covered them all. The one player I was surprised, Dan, was really for you, because he's at wide receiver 8 currently, and I think we drafted 7 or 8 wide receivers right now. So it was a little bit surprising that you didn't think he might move up in value a little bit. The other guys, and just in that that area, I thought hard about Claypool. If he has a gigantic year 2, if Judy has a gigantic year 2, I think those guys are definitely in conversation for a top 3 pick.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun to do this exercise 4 and 5 and 6 rounds deep, because you'd see some of those names come up. Ridley's a great example, of course. Chubb, as well as oh man, I blanked. Dalvin Cook. Those names, they have to fall in very soon, right? They have to happen relatively soon. Hurts, you mentioned, Kittle and Waller, and DJ Moore was another guy that I had listed towards the end, right next to Ridley. I always pair those two guys together. I did skip Ridley. I didn't want to. He was one of the wide receivers that I wanted to take at the 312, but Tyreek is just. There's no way he's not just a massive playmaker all year long in the best offense in the NFL. You can't take Ridley over Tyreek, although I'd love to. So the third round's in the bag as well. Deshaun Watson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson, Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Davante Adams, and Tyreek Hill round out the top 36. We're going to get it in under an hour if I make it quick getting out. For Ryan and Matt, it's Dan. Thanks for listening to this episode of the DLF Dynasty podcast. We'll catch you again next week.